Hi,
Great.
Valerie.
Hi, James, Carly, and Jance. Valerie
Hi.
Milano. Hi there. Valerie Milano from the Hollywood Times. Thanks for taking the time here. It was a powerful film. It was shot in Kentucky and did shots in the forest or on the water tower. It proved to be difficult during filming. Jance portrayed Andy's character and conveyed this role so well. What preparation did it take to prepare for such an emotionally taxing role?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that was actually shot in New York, in
Oh,
Syracuse. Yeah, I
interesting.
mean, I'm glad that it fooled somebody because that's what we were going for, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, Syracuse, New York, it has some similarities to that those mountainous areas. So, um,
The
yeah,
setting is in Kentucky, but we shot it in
yes,
Syracuse. Yeah.
Okay.
yes.
Well,
Um,
being in the water tower, did it prove to be difficult during the filming?
yeah. Well, I mean, the water tower was very interesting because the whole thing was built inside.
Oh,
It was actually a an indoor set with a green screen.
interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, when it was like this huge thing, and like I never realized how big water towers actually are. Like you see them driving by, but they are huge, so big. And we had a huge one inside of this sound stage, um, built from scratch. It was so cool. I was like, this is amazing. Anyway, going back to your original question of
Yes.
how did I prepare for the role? I I had to take it from a place of, compassion for someone who's going through uh these types of issues. Um, I had an acting coach tell me like you can never spend any time worrying about how you and your character are different. You can only spend time working on how you're the same. And the first thing that I connected with Andy was the fact that he was an artist because I'm also a painter. Um, I have been doing that since I was a kid, so that was just a natural connection that I was able to build upon. And I think when somebody is an artist, especially like a visual artist that draws or paints, there's always some sort of vibe about that person, and like they have a way of thinking that is different than like somebody who is a musician or does other types of art. So I had to go about it with a feeling of like connecting with this character rather than focusing on, like the mistakes that Andy ends up making, or like what was wrong with him, and like trying to diagnose him with different mental health problems, like, and then doing research like, okay, what does it feel like to have psychosis. Like all I was looking at was what does this character want. um like what does Andy want? And Andy wanted to save the world basically. And so I had to find the place in myself where I wanted to be a protector and I wanted to be a hero. And that's how I built Andy's character, was, you know, going going through with it with all of the those goals.
Love it. Thank you. The prescribing of medication was exceptionally loud to me because he was definitely suffering psychosis, but was labeled as having ADHD. Was this an intentional misdiagnosis, and was this important to capture in this film?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, for us, like from the writing standpoint, I think we were trying to really not specifically diagnose him ourselves because we're not, I'm not a mental health professional necessarily. Like I can't go there and try to diagnose somebody. But to have a character and specifically a mental health professional within the film misdiagnose him was important because in the research that we did and going through so many stories and reading every book under the sun and clicking on every video and doing first person interviews with people who have been through the mental health care system in this country firsthand. They had so many moments where they're misdiagnosed. And I think, um, in the situation with Andy, which is a situation that happens often, that somebody could be, 5150 and go into the 72-hour psych hold. And, that's only giving that mental health evaluator 72 hours with somebody to understand what they're going through, which is a short amount of time. And some people, and to make a diagnosis like psychosis specifically, or affective disorder or schizophrenia, those sort of more severe illnesses, is really hard for a mental health professional to do in such a short amount of time. And so what actually does often happen is somebody is misdiagnosed because perhaps there's it's just the beginning of a diagnosis sort of trail that many people end up going on, because it's mental health and brain health is really a tough thing to diagnose. So yeah, it was purposeful, based on some firsthand accounts that we came across. So yeah.
And to your point, James, like it's not linear either. And that's why it's so hard to diagnose in such a short period of time, is like the acute crisis that someone might be going through is not necessarily going to happen in that window. It could happen because of triggers that are happening outside of that environment that, you only will be privy to if you spend significant ongoing time with a patient. And so I think like, and for the character of Angela, like that's such a poignant scene and poignant moment, because she doesn't have the resources to get a second opinion. She doesn't have the time or the ability or the location. She can't drive hours away to the next major city in order to get better help. It's just not possible. And so having that moment of misdiagnosis, but it's all she has to go on, is kind of like it's a critical narrative, I think.
Excellent point, Carly. Thank you.
Why was it important to show Angela being so invested in church? Was this a signifier to the audience that maybe her son's behaviors went unnoticed due to her own quest for healing?
Yeah, I think, again, the story takes place in Kentucky, and faith and religion plays a large part in a lot of people's lives out there. I mean, when you're in small towns, it's those places become your community, because that's what those things are. And for her, she had gone through her own sort of life crisis of alcoholism, and the church had become a community for her to work herself out of there. And she tried to use it as a point to help herself and her family and her son again. And again, what ends up happening within the church comes from firsthand accounts that we heard from people who were experiencing their own mental health crisis through a situation like that. And so yeah, I mean, that was on my end, and I'm sure Carly has a lot to say on that too, as the
Well, yeah, I definitely feel like Angela, as James mentioned, is sort of full up with her own crises that are going on, based on the loss of her husband to suicide, based on her own addiction, and now sobriety. She has absolutely devoted herself to the church, because that became her lifeline. That became her mode of community and therapy and assistance and salvation, really. Like that's what it was. And she's trying everything to proselytize her son and her new relationship. She's trying to bring people into the fold, because she felt the relief, and she felt the sense of belonging, and she felt a path forward via the church. until she doesn't. And I think with what you were saying, Valerie, about like, did she miss signs? I absolutely believe that Angela had been so self-focused, not in a cruel or malevolent way, but self-focused for her own healing, that she was missing the small cues. You know, early in the movie, she says to Andy, "Are we in a good mood today?" And that's indicative of the fact that he's often in a bad mood. And bad moods can be very indicative of deeper things going on. They can be very indicative of anxiety, depression, withdrawing, anger, all of these things. And I think until she's at the crux where the church is no longer her lifeline, I think that's when she really activates in order to try to save her son. But it takes that kind of door closing in order for another one to open, for her to walk through.
Yeah. And her self-healing was like very much the intention to be a better mother for her son too. And so yeah, it was all great points, Carla.
Yeah, I mean, like the church can sometimes be a band-aid for really a lack of material resources, because God's love is free. So it's like, maybe you can't, buy new clothes, or you can't buy food, but you can go and you can pray, and that's fine. That's something you can do.
One of the things I was just going to say, one of the research areas for me was I was looking at this Pentecostal church that's in Kentucky that involves snake handling. And obviously that's a very extreme form of worship, but it's a church in Kentucky. And I was watching documentaries on this church, and something that, their belief, and this is not verbatim, of course, but like their belief is God will forgive you. And if a snake bites you, there's something going wrong in your life. Like that was sort of like the ethos of it. And I sort of took that for Angela, in the sense that I think she really believed God will forgive, God will forgive, God will forgive. And when she no longer has that path and assistance from the church, she has to sort of really kick in and learn how to forgive herself and move forward, because something is going wrong in her life. And she's got to figure out how to manage this crisis on her own.
I enjoyed speaking with all three of you, and I'm glad you took the time for us as press to talk about the film. I wish you the best, and I look forward to continuing to spread the word about it and write about it, and look forward to hopefully hearing more about your next endeavors.
Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Valerie.
Excellent. All right. Keep up the great work.
Thanks.
Take care.